two, three, four.
Hey guys, and welcome back to the On the House podcast. As always, I'm your host, Lando Petrie. Fabulous day here. Glad to have you here while we have another outstanding topic to talk about today. Today, we're going to talk about the art of articulation, right? It's not what you say, but how you say it that makes all the difference when uncovering the information you need to know to properly pre-approve your client, as well as understand the purpose behind their transaction. But before we do that, we're going to kick it off with another minor league ball hat. Before I introduce the team, big shout out to one of my favorite people in the industry, Katrina Orlando. She sent this to me as a present. It's the Lehigh Valley Iron Pigs, which are close to her in Pennsylvania. And yes, it's a piece of bacon, which is my favorite thing about pigs. So let's go ahead, get started, dive into today's topic, okay? So there are a few things that I want to set as far as precedents when we talk about this, right? The first thing that I think all of us need to understand is it's a digital age, right? A lot of things are done on technology. Hey, most of my clients, most of your clients probably apply via your mobile app, right? An online website. They fill out the application. In the age of social media, the age of not necessarily connecting face to face, we tend to have a tendency to sometimes rush. We got to stop that, okay? At the end of the day, buying a house is typically an individual's most expensive purchase of their life, right? It's their home. It shouldn't be a 3-minute conversation. It shouldn't be quick. It shouldn't be rushed. I can't go to the doctor and tell him my back hurts and he just gives me a prescription and I leave. No, he does an examination. He determines what is the cause and then how do we solve it. So I want you to understand that I tell everyone we're going to need 45 minutes to an hour to talk about this. And that's after they do the mobile app or if I'm on the phone taking the application with them, right? There's a lot of questions. This is a 30-year commitment. A lot changes in an individual's life within 30 years. Trust me, I'm north of 30. I'm not the same as I was 27 years ago. But a lot in life changes. So you have to understand long-term goals, their purpose, what are they looking to do, and provide them with options that more than anything can give flexibility. You're educating someone. A lot of times I would hear people, right, come through me. They'd say stuff like, well, Quicken Loans only needed 10 minutes of my time. One, I would simply respond back to them and say, you and the purchase of your home is worth more than 10 minutes to me. Make them understand that, right? We're talking about a big deal. The next thing is I want you to shift your mind, right? Right now, I understand things are tough. Inventory's low, rates are high, deals are hard to come by. But we also have to understand that in troubled times, we build strength, right? Pressure builds diamonds. It's the same thing. All you're doing at this time is learning a new way to think so you can be successful when we come out of this. And one of the mindsets that I see a lot of individuals or a lot of younger loan officers or newer to the industry do is they just keep spinning their wheels and spinning their wheels and spinning their wheels, trying to get a customer approved. Change your mindset. My job is not to get someone approved. My job is to educate and find a pathway to get them to an approval. Okay? The answer is never no. It may sometimes be not now. But we're going to ensure that we build a customized plan to get you where you need to be. Now, you may be asking, okay, that's great, but I need to get paid on all these things. I understand it. But at the end of the day, if I tell someone, hey, we're 3 months away from where we need to do, and this is how we do it, guess what? I get paid in 3 months. I still made money. I want to get paid 3 months from now. Trust me. So we have to understand these things. All of this happens by understanding and asking the right questions to get the answers that you need to know. Okay. So a lot of loan officers need to understand that the pre-approval process, the act of getting someone the ability to put an offer in on a home, should be the most important part of the entire process. Why? It's the only time you don't have a time frame. You're not on a time crunch. Okay. When they're in contract, there's an end date. You must be done by that. You also have all the time prior to handing them that piece of paper to put an offer on a property to dig up and find every information. So I challenge you guys, think like an underwriter, right? I joke and I tell a lot of people that I train that are new in the industry, you ever seen the show Cops? And of course, everyone's like, yeah, I love Cops. It was great. I was like, yeah, me too. Well, after they get done singing the Bad Boys song, right, that guy comes on and says, all suspects are proven innocent until found guilty in a court of law. Well, what I challenge people is to ask questions and to approach this is that all of your clients are guilty until proven innocent, right? At the end of the day, underwriting's sole function is to prove the individual's ability to repay. Well, okay, I want to do that. I want to provide the proof that I need that shows exactly what we're looking to accomplish to show that this client qualifies for the house. How do I do that? And how do I do that without over docking the file? Well, I ask the right questions. There's a phrase that I heard a colleague of mine say, and it was, you need to be thin but thorough. And it stuck with me. It makes sense, right? And I understood what he said. I got to be really thorough with the questions I ask and the understanding of what I'm dealing with, which will allow me to be thin with the evidence I present to the underwriter to get you qualified. Because the less paperwork you have to provide becomes easier for your client. It's easier for me as a lender, and it's easier for the underwriter to get through. It expedites the process. So let's first start with general application questions that we're going to want to talk about. And then we're going to focus a little bit more about understanding and deriving questions to get someone's purpose. Okay. So the first thing that we do is we have to be able to control the conversation while allowing the other individual to lead it, right? They need to talk, let them speak. But when it comes to certain things, don't assume what they put down is correct. Ask, identify. This way you can locate hurdles and get around them before you're ever in contract, before you have, a closing date. So let's talk a little bit about this, right? How long have you lived there versus when did you move in? These are, once again, different questions. How long do you live there? That's going to give us an about. It's not a direct answer. We need to know the exact dates, right? These can come into play with questions on the credit report, other things we have, right? So think about changing your questions to drive them to give you the answer and the response that you truly need. One of the big ones that we always ask, how long have you worked there? What do they say? Oh, about 3 years. No offense, but about means not 3 years. It's literally a generality. Okay, about. Was it 3 years, 2.7, 2.8, 2.5? What is it? That doesn't provide me clarity into what I'm dealing with. When were you hired? That gives me a date, at least a month and a year. From then on, I can do the math to figure out how long you've truly been at that job. Look, there are requirements for certain products to have certain lengths of employment. Certain types of income require certain documentation or length of time to be able to use those for the products you're looking to take advantage of. So we need to uncover those pieces of information, right? So there's a big difference, right? So the other thing when it comes to our employment, right, is going to be not what do you make? How much are you paid? Once again, that's a general number. How are you paid? That's going to give you an answer. How are you paid? I'm hourly. Okay. What is your hourly rate? Perfect. Are you full-time, 40 hours a week? Yes. Now I can do the math. I'm identifying a number that I need to know that's going to let me, what documentation do I have to obtain to go over that, right? Don't just assume. Go deep. In addition to your hourly rate, do you receive any overtime, bonus, commission? If they say yes, okay. Now I know this is variable income. Typically, it's going to need a 2-year receipt. So now I start thinking about the documentation that I want to get ready to obtain from my client. Look, W-2s are great, but W-2s lump all your income into one line, right? It doesn't give me a breakout. Sure, I can order a verification of employment from your employer, but now I'm relying on someone else in an office to write down the information correctly and get it back to me in a timely manner. I'm just going to go with year-end pay stubs. Your last pay stub of the year is going to show everything you made for each year broken out on a line item. Most clients can get those to you within a day. Simple, easier, effective, right? Identifying the information so I can explain them to them, right? Asking clients, right? Clarifying things. Do you own a home? No. The real question is, have you owned a home in the last 3 years, right? Explaining to them. That's going to identify first-time home buyer options. The entire time that I'm doing this, I'm interviewing them to understand what options are they going to have available. And I'm mentally making check marks, putting stuff down on paper, identifying and removing avenues that I can navigate, right? I think of it as almost like a major freeway system. There are all these different little roads that all lead to one highway that gets you right downtown. Okay, the end result is buying a house and closing. That's the same for all my clients, but where we start from is based on the information they provide, right? Asking them how much they have saved up is a great question. Asking them what type of accounts it's in and where do they intend to pull the money from is another question, right? Once again, I'm identifying a pathway to the documents I need as well as a solution that I need to obtain. Okay. So all of these things are going to be simple, easy things, right? And take the time to educate them. When you're asking someone these questions, right? Let them know if they have questions. If you sense some kind of uncertainty in their voice, explain it. Take a time to make sure that they're there, right? The best thing you could ever do is allow your client to make an educated and informed decision. It builds trust better than anything else. So, there's a lot of things, right? I'm going to assume. I'm going to also identify things to the other questions, right? Are you married? Okay, there's a difference between married and unmarried. Okay, unmarried means you were married before. So I'm going to say, are you married or have you ever been married before? That's the question. Okay, why is that? Because if they were married before, then I'm going to have to follow that up. If they have dependents, is there child support? Is there alimony? Is there a separation agreement I need to be aware and documentation and other liabilities I need to account for? Is there anybody else that's going to be on title to this? If they are married, the spouse, where do they live? What state? Is it community property? What guidelines go into what for what program? Right? All of these things are items that allow me to identify what programs are available to who. So as we keep going through with these types of things, we're going to come to one of the biggest things that we need to do. And this is where you take time and you articulate certain stuff to understand what they're dealing with. I think we've all asked questions about income, assets, right? Are you getting any gift? Do you have things? When it comes to qualifying a customer or finding that pathway to approval, income, we can figure it out, right? They don't quite make enough money to buy the house they're looking for. Okay. Can anyone co-sign? Non-occupant co-borrower. We can do things in there, right? That's a pathway that solves the solution around income. They don't have quite enough saved up. Okay. Is there a bond program, down payment assistance? Can they get a gift? There's an avenue that can solve that problem. One of the avenues that we can't fix is issues on their credit. Okay, of course, there are credit repair companies we all use. We all have services that we can run within our credit company that's going to allow us to work up a custom scenario to get them to raise their score. But what I can't come over is, liens and judgments. Look, if you look at guidelines, they all say these must be paid before or at closing. Most of the time, you don't pay a judgment, go to the courthouse and have that lien removed immediately and then have all the paperwork necessary to make it to your closing in time. No, I need to get this taken care of. Why? Because that's a third-party hurdle that I can't control the time frame under which they get something done. So I need that done before we get pre-approved, right? I need to look for bankruptcies, liens, other things that are out there, right? I want to check those items because certain things have waiting time frames, right? And if I have to pivot, if I have to provide a different solution, I want to have that conversation. I want to articulate that to my customer up front, not when they're already into contract, right? So these are the types of things that take that additional time, right? So I will go through the credit report line by line, every item with my client, making sure that what I see matches up with them. I don't want my reputation to take a hit because something that I had the ability to do up front wasn't done because I waited. I got to be proactive, not reactive in this industry. So I'll go through the credit report. I'll talk to them. I'll explain things. We'll go over the line items. I'm going to also interview them on there and ask the questions centered around a letter of explanation around their credit. I'm going to go over the addresses that I see. I'm going to find out who they are. I'm going to take note of those. I'm going to jot down those answers and get those responses typed up. Most importantly, I'm going to spend time talking with them about the inquiries on their credit. A lot of people don't understand that it could take 45 to 60 days for something to show up on your credit report, right? Normally, most every creditor has 30 days to be late, right? So from a mortgage standpoint, right? That means you have until the end of the day on the 1st to make your payment before they hit you actually ding your credit. So that's going to take some time to report. And then they've got to send all the information to the credit bureaus. The credit bureau compiles it and they update the scores accordingly. It doesn't happen instantaneously. So there's a chance that I could not see something. More commonly, Things that are, an amortizing loan, such as a mortgage, such as an auto loan. I can have my credit pulled by Nissan, buy a car. I don't make a payment the next month. I make the first payment 45, 50, almost even 60 days later on that property. And now that payment registers, that liability now shows up. But I pulled their credit 7 days after they got it. Well, there's an inquiry on there. Now I'm identifying certain things that I can get documentation on that I may need to hold against my client. The key here is that you've got to think like an underwriter when you're doing these interviews. If you think like an underwriter, you can beat the underwriter, right? You can appease them before they have to look at the file. And some of you may wonder, right? A lot of times loan officers don't always understand. They think underwriters, okay, why are they being so tough? Why are they being so hard? Well, underwriters have lending authority, right? The better that the loans that they approve produce, meaning not entering into foreclosure, have the clients making on-time payments and those types of stuff, it increases their lending authority. It ups the amounts of loans they can do. It could give them access to government loans, other types of products, things like that. Well, in a free market, what it's really doing is it's increasing their salary. It's their desirability of other individuals to employ them goes up. The higher the lending authority you have, the better your career takes off. So naturally, they're looking at everything from a level of risk, and they're going to protect that. So it's our job to look at these things and take the time to do that, not just when we have the documentation, but it starts when we have a conversation, right? So we want to figure out these things and start to think about that. So while I encourage you to build rapport, when you do go over, review a file, look at someone, right? You need to make sure, hey, what all documents do I need to get? And am I asking the right questions to get the right answers to understand what my customer's unique situation is? And we're strictly talking from an income, asset, and credit standpoint. So then I can help them on that pathway to approval. So a few good things to think about, right? I encourage you guys, meet with an underwriter, sit with them, ask how they look through a loan, right? It's a great way to start to train your mind to think the way that they think. And then you accompany that with your sales skills, with your ability to be comfortable speaking to a client, building rapport, using the emotional intelligence we talked about in episode 1. But you're rounding your craft. And by doing these things, especially at a time like now when it's slow, when things are hard, you have some more time. All you are doing is building a mentality and sharpening your skills for when rates come down and things get busy. And I promise you, as someone who's been in the industry a long time, the better you get at these things, the easier it is to do more and stress less when things are busy, because you will have a process in place that works, that causes you to not have to be involved nearly as much when the file leaves your hands, which opens up more time to get more business when it's busy. Okay. All of these things, all we're doing is building tools for the future. The market always goes like this. And right now we're in one of these. It will come back. And when it does, position yourself by using these tactics to be able to go out there and attack and dominate. So it's a great thing to think about, right? It's a great tool to have. Take your time, slow down, have a long, educated conversation. Now, the other thing that you need to do when you're interviewing an individual is understand a couple things. Everybody has a purpose. Okay. Buying a house, that's not their purpose. There's an emotional driver behind why they're looking to buy the house. So find that out. Why? Why are you guys looking to buy a house? What sparked your interest? Ask them why. Get to tell them. Simon Sinek wrote a book that's called It Starts With Why. It is about the power of purpose and understanding an individual's purpose and communicating with why, not with what, that allows you to truly lead people. It's a fantastic book. I've read it. I recommend you guys reading it as well. So I want to understand the why. Okay. Well, we're about to have a baby on the way. We're going to need some more space. Outstanding. I'm so excited. You guys, was it a boy or a girl? Is this your first child? Right? I want to find out things that make me a person to them. Right? I understand this is transactional. It's a transaction. I am getting documents. I am risk assessing your file, and I am handing you money. That's a transaction. I want it to be non-transactional. I need it to be personal. So I want to find out why. At the same time, I'm also understanding and identifying conversations that I'm going to have to help educate my clients on the right, program. Oh, you're about to have a child. That's outstanding. In the back of my mind, okay, I'm thinking their life in the next 5 to 7 years is going to increase. Things are going to get more expensive. As kids get bigger, they cost more. They're going to need more space. They're going to do things. They're going to have savings, right? So now I'm going to talk about putting them and explaining the flexibility that a program has to allow them to take advantage of refinances and other options that come down the line as their family dynamic changes, right? I'm going to talk about, okay, options that keep as much money in their pocket and take as little out to get them into the house. Because look, while I've never had a child, I'm pretty sure that a hospital bill from the birth isn't exactly the cheapest thing out there. There's going to be costs associated with it. We're going to get money to get you a nursery, other things. So I want to talk about those things, right? I want to identify, hey, we're about to retire. We're looking for our forever place. Okay. Now I understand, hey, I've got to find something that's going to give them stability, flexibility, and a payment that they're incredibly comfortable with long term so they can enjoy their retirement, right? All of these things are the ideas that you want to identify. It builds rapport, right? When you call and you check on someone, right? Always ask, hey, you guys going to look at any houses this week? That's great. That's fantastic. No. Hey, I just wanted to check in, see how everything's going, seeing if you need anything. You guys have any fun plans this weekend? Ask that way, fun plans, okay? And then if they're going out to look at a home, they're doing something else, or the kid's got a football game or things like that, guess what? When I call them on Monday, so I want to see how the house hunt went, the first thing I did is, hey, how'd little Timmy's football game go? Did they get the win? Did he play good? Oh, that's outstanding. I bet you guys had a great time. I'm so proud. I'm going to talk about that. And I'm going to ask him, hey, by the way, what did you think of the house? Anything, any good news? We thinking about, any questions I can answer, whatever it may be, right? I'm going to try to communicate with them and make them understand, hey, I'm here for you. Because at the end of the day, you got to remember, right? Someone stays in a mortgage at about 7 to 10 years is about the typical time of a mortgage, right? Now, why does this happen? It's all done around family dynamics, right? You have a baby 7 years later, there's a chance you may have had a second. He's getting bigger, getting ready to move into, middle school in the next couple of years. You need more space, right? 10 years down the line after that, or within that time frame, 7 years, you may be saying college is on the horizon. We need to refinance, take some of the equity out of our house to help him get into school. Okay. Now, 7 years after that, guess what? Congratulations. He's off the payroll. He's got a job. He's out of there. Now we're talking about downsizing, reducing our payment, reducing our space to save money for our retirement. All of these things are life experiences. Well, there's no reason that first transaction, that first interview you're doing with a client, if you ask the right questions, you build the right rapport, I'm your professional for life. Okay. I don't go to a different doctor every time I'm sick. Why can't you call me every time you need home financing needs? It all starts with that personal touch. So find their purpose, sell to their purpose. Okay. Rates aren't great. They're not, but I don't care if rates were in the two. The individuals who always have done the best don't ever lead with rates. They lead with purpose. They make a connection and they give them a sense of trust. And because of that, the individual feels safe with them. Okay. Now, also, in addition to that, ask questions when you're talking to them, right? I want you to recap what they say back to them. All right. Okay. So you're looking to do this, this, and this. Okay. Yeah, we can help you with that. It shows that you're hearing them. It acknowledges them, right? Ask them if they have questions. Make sure that they understand what you're explaining. And don't shy away from things that are tough. It's okay to say, you know what, that's a great question. Let me find the answer out for you. It's okay. Nobody knows everything. It's all right. But if you acknowledge it versus throwing some BS out there, you can call them back and give them the right answer. Don't be afraid when they talk about rates. Your customer talks about rates and things like that because they don't know anything better to say. It's tribal knowledge, right? Their matriarch of their family, their grandfather told it to his father, who's going to tell it to your father, right? You don't pay points unless you can drop a percentage on a rate. Well, the law of commodities isn't the same, right? My grandfather bought his first house probably for $8,000. My house was a lot more than that. There's a big difference in what 0.5% can do on my monthly mortgage payment because of the value of my home. So You've got to think about those things. You've got to understand where objections come from. They don't know you, they don't like you, and they don't trust you. Those three things, everything roots back to those three things. Okay, so asking the questions to build rapport, leading with their purpose, celebrating it, all of those things will help accommodate those three items. Okay, now what does, what all does that do for you, right? Well, the biggest thing it's going to do is it's going to allow you to make a connection that you can build upon, right? You've got to foster these things because at the end of the day, we've said this in episode 1, emotions are real and your perception is your reality, right? So you've got to embrace those things. So I encourage you guys, right? Practice, take some applications. If you have some new scripting, talk to your spouse. If you don't have a spouse, use a friend, do it in the meal, rehearse it, right? Find a flow that works for you and stick with it, right? I do the same thing every time I talk to every person because one, it allows me to stay organized. Now, I may not ask them the exact same questions when it comes to discovering their purpose, but I do ask the exact same questions in the exact same manner, in the exact same order every time I'm taking their application to make sure that I've uncovered all the information I need to know up front. And think about it. A lot of times people ask me, it seems like we're asking about a lot of stuff. We are, and I get it. Embrace it. I know it's a lot of documentation. I got to look through it all too. I completely agree. But what I don't want to have you is digging through boxes to find these documents when you're worried about getting your kid enrolled in the new school and things loaded on the truck to get in your new home. I'd like to take care of it now when we have the time and you know where everything is. It's that simple. It's the truth. I've got to look out for you because in a couple days when you get in contract, your life's going to change. Your priorities aren't going to always be paperwork that I need. It's going to be the other big things you need to do to get your family into that new home. So setting the expectations and embracing them in a way that gets the customer excited, but also relays your message is correct. Because at the end of the day, remember, they're calling you because you're the professional. What they don't know, they don't know. So, don't be afraid to, like I said, to educate and, like I said, and not, interview them really is what you're truly doing. So some of the great things I can tell you, practice, keep it going, repeat, and think about it. I also encourage you guys to get better at this process, to identify where you missed things in a question. Look at the findings that come out when your file gets out of underwriting. Speak to your processor and look at the emails they may communicate with your client prior to the initial submission and see what they're asking for. What did I miss? What things could I have done differently, right? That's a great way to understand where there may be a hole in some of the questions that you're asking. Now, I know not everyone gets everything every time, neither do I. But if I consistently see, hey, they're having to ask for this, or this isn't being collected, or this is causing questions to be asked about this, okay, well, that's something that I can tangible and take and use to better my process. At the end of the day, remember a couple things. We've got 2 ears and 1 mouth. Use these twice as much as you use these. Take time, go over the details, have a conversation, build rapport, and your business long-term will be better for it. As always, guys, I appreciate your time. Thank you very much. You guys have a great one.